Good morning. Well, let's try that again. Good morning. On behalf of the family, I would like to welcome you to this celebration of life this morning. The family is grateful that you have decided to be with them during this time that we celebrate the life of their husband, father, grandfather, son, neighbor, and dear friend. They appreciate the memories you will share with them today or in the future. These memories will keep Dave alive in spirit in their hearts. After this time that we celebrate Dave's life, the family invites you to a time of lunch and sharing more memories at the Madison Club. After the final blessing, please wait until the family has exited the sanctuary. Family visitation will happen at the Madison Club. For those of you joining us by live stream this morning, the slideshow that has been showing here in the sanctuary will be played at the end of the service. I invite us into a time of prayer. Oh God, we are your sheep, and today we are wandering a bit, grieving the loss of someone we love, yet wanting to celebrate how much he gave to each of us gathered here today. Even though we celebrate Dave's life today, we find a huge hole in our hearts. Today, in this moment, we give thanks that you, O God, a higher power, have joined us here in this space to lift our spirits and to remind us of the promise of hope as we surround this family with our love for them. Grant us, God, a degree of your understanding and peace as you lead us always in your ways. May we feel your presence in this moment as we celebrate the role Dave played in each of our lives. Amen. I invite Katie to come up to say a few words.
So I got up this morning and I thought I needed to say something today about my David. I just wanted everybody to know about what he was really like in our day-to-day life at home. Everybody knew him as this quiet pillar of strength. And he was that for me and our 3 kids. David always knew the right thing to say or do in any situation. The most brilliant person I knew. When the kids asked for advice, Mom's opinion meant something. Dad's opinion was everything. I don't recall any times I really won out in that arena. When the kids were younger, David was traveling a lot, and he was gone a lot. But when he came home, he devoted himself to the family. Playtime with the kids, wrestling with the boys, playing video games, often until the wee hours of the morning by himself, twirling his daughter around, daddy-daughter dances, and of course, being in the television business, finding plenty of educational shows to watch on TV together. David taught them how to play and encouraged them to participate in any sport, including skiing, ice skating. David could do it all, and he did it all really well. He showed up for his kids, and he taught them well, that they had to rely on themselves and that their future depended on the efforts that they put into themselves each and every day. I remember him once telling one of the kids, that child will remain nameless here today, if you don't want to do your schoolwork, it's not my problem. I've already attended school. I graduated. I have a job. It's your life. Do what you want. If they messed up, they had to accept responsibility. There was to be no whining and no complaining. And although David had a very quiet strength about him, he really knew how to have fun. He was an exceptional dancer. And one thing I really will miss is having fun on the dance floor with him. He never missed a Badgers sport event or a Packers football game, and if he could be there in person, he would. If things didn't go well, which lately they haven't been, or if they were losing, it was about the only time I ever really heard him swear. And he really didn't hold anything back. He truly enjoyed being with the kids as a family celebration, playing with his grandchildren. They were the loves of his life, the fruits of his labor. So, to my children and their spouses, I'm so glad you have each other to lean on through life's troubled times. Life is precious. Tomorrow is promised to no one. Carry Dad's love with you and life lessons, and pass them on to your kids. Today we gather not to say goodbye. It sounds so harsh and final. I'd rather say, see you later, honey. Just as I did when he was leaving for work or going to the gym in the morning. It was always, see you later, honey. And so, I love you, honey, and I'll see you later.
Before I begin, you're probably wondering who this bald-headed guy is here. And I think it's important to know, not because I'm somebody, but, maybe the mystery of why is he speaking? And yes, it's, I really am inadequate in, I've parachuted into this family's life. And I can't follow Katie here, nor the personal reflections that are going to happen when I'm done here speaking. But I was the kids, Dave and Katie's kids' high school guidance counselor, and a real privilege. These kids are bright, just like their dad and their mom, and so here I am. And I want you to know I'm no stranger to death. I had a dad. My dad died at 60, a brother at 53, a sister at 60, and another brother at 63, and still a bunch more. And that support that Katie mentioned with family is everything. Family is the backbone of this nation. There's no doubt about it. So with that, I'm going to try to share a few things. It's not going to be anything close to what Katie just shared and what the others are going to share. But I started when I came in, I met Dad, and I said, man, your son, he's a handsome man, David, wasn't he? And you take a look at those pictures. What a family, a handsome family, no doubt about it. And I like what Katie said, I'll see you later, honey. Things aren't gloom and doom. And I'd like to say otherwise, and you march on, and you honor people by living life. You don't go out and party your brains out when someone passes and just make a mess of things and go, woe is me. That's not how you honor someone that's passed. You go out and live life to the fullest, just what David did. Because there's two rules in life, right? Everybody dies. That's rule number one. And no one knows the time, right? And being a guidance counselor, kids die. It just wasn't drugs, alcohol, or something nefarious. Life happens. At any age, we're all but one heartbeat away from hitting the floor. So we take today, like Katie said, we gobble it up, we eat this day, and then if we wake up tomorrow, praise God, we do it again. It's one day at a time. You can't worry about tomorrow. There's today, this day, to honor Dave. So two rules in life, right? Everybody dies. That's rule number one. And rule number two is you can't change rule number one, right? So David, who was he? When you're thinking you come in, I mean, of all the things, maybe I just forgot, but Dan playing the guitar is awesome. It's the talent. This is from Pops. This is his tentacles out there, the residuals of who he was, his spirit playing the guitar. You have the program, and you have it written, the life in a nutshell, in a vignette of who David was in that program is written by Zach, and we'll tell you a little bit about that and his writing abilities a little later. And then Ansley, the artist, that is just, this talent just oozes from this family. So I, as a guidance counselor, have written thousands of recommendations, right? And only a few I'd put down and call someone or a girl a Renaissance man, a Renaissance woman. And that's how I see David, his talents. And you're going to hear a few of them, and I can't capture all that he was and did in his life, not even close. But he graduates from University of Wisconsin in Madison here and books out right away. And not only has the courage to do that, just to take off on his own and go out to L.A., as the program says, majoring in film, TV, and radio, just books out to L.A. because that's where it's happening, and that's where everybody thinks it's happening, and that's where you're going to go. And off he goes, and then he lands a job eventually with Disney. Only for David, right? He just went after it. And Zach said he's not this kind of guy that just wait till tomorrow kind of guy, Zach said. He said he's a guy that grabs it. And that's what he did with his dad when they built that cabin up in the UP. He loved the outdoors, and some people just, perseverate and have those thoughts about what we could do or possibly do, and if you have the means, you should do it. And our time on this earth, by virtue of why we are here today, is that it can happen to anybody, and we got to go out there and take it while we can, because it's a gift. Time, this life, is a gift from God, and we don't want to waste it at any age. So here we are. So he takes off, and one of the kids said that cabin up in the UP was his happy place. Could you imagine working for Disney or working for any corporation? It's intense. It isn't you lollygag through and it's another easy day because it's Disney. We see the afterward, the residuals of that magnificent company and what it did and what it continues to do. But that work behind it, man, there had to be stressful hours and a pounding and things, but he didn't let it get to him. But that cabin, he let loose up there. And Dan was like incredulous. His son here was playing the guitar. It's like, I don't even know how Dad did it. He'd go up there, spend a week, 2 weeks, whatever the duration was, and not take a shower. Yeah. You laugh, And then when he was challenged on that, he calmly said, well, I swim in the lake. Like, what's the big deal? But, you got to go out and grab life and take it while you can in the proper way. This is not improper, I don't think. But one day he was just on the dock in his happy place, took off all his clothes, and ran off the dock into the water. It's kind of a neat thing to think about. The family said this. I thought this is really impactful. Right after, if he knew he was dying, the day he was dying, he would tell all of you he doesn't regret a single thing. Oh, can you say that? Can I say that? That's pretty amazing. Talent. Talking about a Renaissance man. This guy was just oozing with it. He could play the piano. He could dance. You know, Katie's talking about this dance. He was a tremendous dancer, and the kids were baffled by it. And then I think Dan or Zach said he just had it. He just had it. How'd he get it? No one knows. But he could dance. He just had it. It's kind of cool. And at 62, and you can see the structure that he was, he could still outbench his kids on the bench press. And I see him at the rec center. He's at the rec center every day. I'm not in there every day. 2 days a week. I just don't like going in doing that stuff. But he was there every day, and he would get out. And Dan was just talking about between a sophomore and junior year at North High School that Dad got Zach and Dan excited into weightlifting. So you got this thin, kind of tall kid and lanky Dan in high school, and during the summer he's lifting, comes back, and the PE teachers even took notice and, what happened to you? You know, not steroids, that's for sure. But another talent was his writing. He could write. And we're going to talk a little bit about that in a second, that he could write. And he was an artist, and he wrote poems for Katie, love poems to his wife, and how precious is that? And about Zach's ability to write in that program, you can see how polished it is. Zach has at North High School, I'm sure other high schools, it's a great school. And I work there, but I bleed purple. That's the color in North High. I love the place. I'll say it's outstanding. But no high school's perfect. No marriage is perfect. Nobody's perfect. But we'd have these kids do work in the summer, and the English department's like, these kids got to read a book, they got to write a paper, and it's like kids are like, I'd be like, it's summer, I don't want to do any of this. So Zach has a major paper due at the start of the school year in the fall when school starts. And he's got all summer to work on it, and it's going to take some time. It's a major project. School starts, and Zach forgot to do the paper. David gets a hold of it, the idea that, his son's in a dilemma. Calmly just kind of, I think he probably had a little sparkle in his eye, the way you guys went off, sat down, no problem. In 1 hour, he wrote Zach's paper. Zach turns it in, A+. A+. Unbelievable. So Ansley's talking about some of the memories of taking, I find this hard to believe because he's a brilliant man. He's talented. If God came down and I don't know, I apologize if you don't all know basketball, but you could say it's LeBron James today or Michael Jordan. God comes down and taps somebody on the head, and that guy's a basketball player. Everybody else has to work at it. I mean, of course, Michael and LeBron work, but you know what I mean? It's just like they got it. They got it. And I lost my train of thought. I got so caught up. Excuse me for that. I'm going to move on because I've just getting excited talking about him. We're going to move on with another story about Zach. This it really was really funny, and I hope it comes across that way to you guys as well, because I just laughed because I saw Zach explaining this in his facial expression. But Zach and Dad going to bond together, and they're going to get a tattoo on their backs. Zach, of course, is going to go first. They got an appointment. This is money for the guy in his tattoo parlor, and he's looking forward to doing this, and they're going to get on their back the coat of arms for the McLeod family, the Scottish logo on their back tattooed. So Zach is down on the table. He's getting his tattoo going, and I guess, David's kind of looking and thinking, and I'm wondering, it's like I'm not doing this, in his head. He's not saying anything. And, Zach's down, and all of a sudden, David disappears. He's gone. So the tattoo artist is like, where'd your dad go? And then the tattoo artist says, is he coming back? And Zach goes, his head down, no, he's not coming back. He's not coming back. And Zach also, it started with Zach, they all had, Zach is probably the one Katie was talking about when she didn't want to mention the names, but that's my guess. I'm gonna vote for Zach. So, I think it's sophomore year. I didn't catch the year exactly, but Zach's out. It must have been a homecoming dance. And we're going to talk about his demeanor some in a second. And he's out to 3 in the morning. He's a sophomore, and Zach doesn't know how Dad found him. There's no GPS. But this guy's, he's the top of his game all the time. You can't fool him. He's got this innate ability in everything that he does. So he's out laying on the lawn with his girlfriend. Nothing's going on. They're just laying there looking at the stars, probably giggling, and they're sophomores. And up rolls Dad, driving up along the curb, rolls down his window, and looks over at Zach and says, calmly, "Time to come home, Zach." Rolls up the window, goes home. Just, Zach said he never had his thumb on me. He always allowed me, which I think as a parent, and I dealt with a lot of parents, that was my vantage point. For me, an advantage, helping parents, kids in high school, thousands, that you can allow your kid to make a mistake is what you need to do as a parent instead of saving them all the time. Because life is a series of consequences, always, always. So Zach is in Korea, and here it comes back to him, and a connection, amazing. There's turbulence in Korea. It's not the safest place with South Korea, that leader. There's tension, and it's not going so well. And Zach gets a text from David, his dad. "Zach, do you think it's time to come home?" And it's just like him saying when he rolled up on that curb, "Time to come home, Zach." And Zach did. Amazing. Ansley had some great time with her dad. This is what I was going to say. I just can't believe how brilliant he is. And talking about the Michael Jordan, LeBron James, just came back to me, that he could sit there and say to you, and as Zach wrote, dismiss the idea of reading. We need to read. We got to read. We tell our kids, read. You got to be hungry for those books. And he just dismissed the idea of reading because you can learn everything you want to learn on TV. It's crazy. So he was a man of his own means here on his ideas on how to go through life, but he just had it. How could he have all that knowledge? How could he make all those decisions? Because he was anointed, I swear, no doubt about it. So Ansley and his dad, her dad, take a stained glass class. Now imagine he was like, "You gotta be kidding." That's what I'd say to my daughter. All summer, every week, 4 hours a week for the stained glass class. I'm thinking Ansley probably didn't know this about her dad, but he didn't like instructions. He didn't listen to the teacher. So they're putting this hodgepodge project together, and it's just kind of a fun memory here of her dad and just how he kind of worked his way through life. And again, an incredible individual to do what he did. And, obviously he had to read something to get through his classes and to get through Wisconsin. But pretty amazing. And Katie, Ansley was talking about her dad in a special moment. And I want to tell you, when I was sitting down with the family, she got tearful, and there was a kind of just a silent moment, but the chance to come together as family and to share all these things about Dad was a special moment and a bright moment. And we have to take a look at life and see it like that, even when death occurs. It's like it's raining today, but the sun is shining above the clouds, right? Amen? So we gotta grab a hold of what we have and be thankful and honor this man with the rest of our life, our years, the best way we can. So Ansley's playing a game with her father. I can't remember what kind of game it was. And I'm a father, and I'm telling you, when my kids say something to me, I'm just like, "How much you want? What do you want? What do you want me to buy you? I'm just saying, all they got to tell me is they love me, they appreciate me, and I'm in. I'm in. That's it. And Ansley's playing this game with David, her dad, and she had an opportunity. Not everybody does. My dad died at 60. I didn't have that opportunity. I mean, he knew I loved him. But boy, if I knew he was dying or had a chance really to sit down as a man later in my life and my years to tell him. And Ansley's playing this game, and then there was this opening, this opportunity to tell David how much she appreciated what he did for her, and she wasn't just thinking about herself, but the family and the opportunities because of his sacrifices, his devotion, his loyalty gave to everybody in that family. And Ansley, I mean, he's so handsome, and look at the beautiful smile. And she said, that was the biggest smile I ever saw in my life from my dad. Really something. Now, Katie was saying his calm demeanor, not losing his cool, being under control, self-assured, bode well for him in his work and at home. Dan was saying, man, I just can't believe this guy just doesn't get mad. Now, Katie said he swore. The kids said he never swore. So, I mean, he was controlled that way. And that's a mighty man when you don't lose it and let these things that bothers you like that. That takes a lot, because we can feel we're justified by losing it. And Dan was talking about this, and they live in a nice neighborhood, and things aren't cheap. And I think I'd blow a cork myself. Yeah, a neighbor boy comes over and throws paint on the garage door. It's like, oh, you got to be kidding. Dan's thinking like Dad's going to be irate. He's going to kill this kid. No. In front of his kids. I mean, the model that Dad was for his kids. Calmly just said, we got to go over and we just got to talk to that boy. We got to work this out. Could you imagine that? Didn't call the cops. Didn't call the parents. Let's just go and talk to him and work this out. That's amazing. That's forgiveness. Incredible. Now, no one's perfect, I said. No parent, no father, no counselor, no coach, nobody. So David has one big flaw. It's the Packers. It's the Packers. Now, I grew up in Illinois, but I vacationed in Wisconsin my whole life, Eldana. I love this state. And I'm a Packer fan in Chicago. It's not good. But, got to be real. So he's watching the Packers. Packers got beat. He's ticked as can be. He's upset. And Katie goes, just the daughter, just like, what are you upset for? It's just a football game. Boom, he just storms off. He just leaves. So his Packers, his Badgers, they meant a lot to him. And it's kind of, we all have our teams or things that we, have a weakness for. And the Packers and Badgers were just that. He loves his grandkids. I guess the pictures, copies, he'd make copies if you were in the family line of the text messages on that line there. You would get pictures of the grandkids, Harrison, Laney, and Ian, and he just loved them to death. But he was the kind of man, and we're going to talk about it in a little bit, Dan mentioned it, that maybe didn't always say, I love you. And I'm going to come back to that in a little bit later on. But he showed his love, and he certainly was proud of his kids, because the kids would hear him brag about their accomplishments to others, but not necessarily tell them. But they felt it and they knew it, and it was real. So with that, I'm going to end with telling you this, that David was a loving father, a loving dad, a loving pops. He was a loving husband. He was a loving grandpa. He was a Wisconsin man. He was a family man. He was a loyal man. He was a Renaissance man. David McLeod was a mighty man. Thank you.
Do not touch the microphone. I won't touch it. Good morning. I'm Greg Barta, lifelong friend of David, and I see a lot of faces I haven't seen here for about 50 years. Being from Madison, it's good to see all of you this morning. David's sense of adventure, curiosity, witty intellect, graciousness, character, and humbleness is what draws people to him, and me too. I believe in a principle that says, if you show me who you walk with, I'll show you who you are. And I was blessed to walk with David, and he made me a better human because of that. You know, we developed a relationship in 5th grade, Orchard Ridge High School. Some of you went there. And during that time, I got to know John Garnett and many other friends in the neighborhood. But we moved away in 7th grade and lost a little bit of touch. And in this room, if you're under 40 years old, you don't understand. There was no internet, no Facebook, no Twitter. So to remain connected was a challenge. But I returned in 1978 to 11th grade, and one of the first people I saw in school was Dave. And it was like we had never left. And so for that, I am forever grateful to him for welcoming me back to Madison. As we often did, Dr. McLeod, at your house on Whitcomb Drive, we would sit around the kitchen table with Elaine, his mother, and Dr. McLeod, and they would offer us advice about how to be upstanding, responsible adult citizens. We were in high school. We needed some help. So on our graduation day, violated a couple things, and as seniors do, David captured all of it on a disposable camera. Remember, it's 1980. And off we went to college. He sent it in for processing, and off we went. Well, about 5 years later, I'm back, and we're 20-something, and with John Garnett, we're at the McLeod kitchen table again to receive more advice. And Mrs. McLeod said, "I have something to show you boys." And not yet realizing that she picked up that camera many years ago, I watched as she dealt pictures onto the table from high school graduation, none of which made that slideshow. And for those of you who knew my mother, all I could think of was, please don't show my mother. But with a wink and a smile, Mrs. McLeod said, these pictures are going to stay right here in this drawer in the kitchen. And I am still relieved to this day. You know, and you talked about it, David was a leader with common sensibilities. He was the first of our group to do a lot of things, to get married in this church right here, to have kids, to buy a house, as he and Katie went off on their adventure and to follow their dreams. So speaking of getting married, David and Katie's rehearsal dinner, December 27th, 1985. The rehearsal's up here. It's Friday night. We're practicing. And I got my first, thanks to David and Katie, when I walked in and saw a woman named Mary. And I said to David, who is that? Because I had never seen her before, and she is now the love of my life 39 years later. So David ventured off to California, Atlanta, Chicago, Texas. I don't think I missed one, but we all went our separate ways with careers and family, but we never lost connection. And when Dave and Katie came back to Chicago, Downers Grove, Mary and I were 2 suburbs to the west, and we would often visit them at their house and talk about the children who are being born, how they're growing up, apparently very well, thank you, and I agree, and becoming and developing families of their own. We maintain that connection. But then I moved to Milwaukee, and every time I drove through Chicago, one person in my mind called David. And I would call him. He'd be on the Eisenhower Expressway slogging through rush hour, and we would talk for 30 minutes, and I was never more so thankful for rush hour traffic jams that gave me more time to talk to David. So now you know David and John, the biggest devoted rabid Badger fans in the world, and Packers. And nothing makes their day brighter than to embarrass me when Purdue University football and basketball loses to the Badgers. And so 3 months ago, we went to the Kohl Center together, went to the game, Purdue, Wisconsin. And for those of you that know, Purdue was embarrassed again, no surprise. But David and John never gloat about their wins. Our witty retorts in 3-way text groups, because now there's an iPhone, we often send during March Madness and college football seasons together, keeps us connected and humble, because the Badgers or the Boilers will always disappoint at the most inopportune time. Do not brag. So beyond sports, we periodically text each other about work, life, politics, travel, and the like. And since retirement, many of these texts to David come back from a foreign country. Oh, we're in Italy. Oh, we're in Spain. Oh, we're wherever, as Katie and he travel the world. And I am so glad you had those years of retirement to do that. So the day before David passed, I sent a text to he and John, and it was on Instagram about a parrot that was yelling at its owner. I cannot say what the parrot was saying. That text sits on my phone, unanswered, but I know someday I will receive his witty retort. Thank you.
Well, good morning, everybody. My name is John Garnett. I'm a lifelong friend of Dave's, but before I share some words about my experiences with Dave, I'd like to thank whoever wrote, now that I know it's Zachary, that awesome obituary. You captured the essence of who Dave was. Thank you. I first met Dave the summer of just right after 3rd grade. We had a wonderful childhood, growing up together, and our best fellow friend, Mike Whalen. Looking back at it now, we hung out at one of our houses each and every day. Dave was living right next to Mike. I was just down the street, down the hill in Loreth. The 3 of us did everything together. As mentioned earlier, Dave and I went to Orchard Ridge Grade School, middle school. We went to Memorial High School. We went to UW-Madison together. And along with another close friend of ours who couldn't make it today, Leif Owens. My memories are full of moments of playing backyard football. Paul was the all-time quarterback, throwing passes. We played wiffle ball throughout the neighborhood at different homes, like it was like different Major League Baseball fields because they had different dimensions. We organized carnivals for Ronald McDonald House to raise some money. Or maybe we're just trying to get some money to go down to PDQ and get some candy. We played kick the can after dinner in the neighborhood outside Mike's house. We joined Little League Baseball, youth baseball. We rode bikes to our neighborhood pool to take swimming lessons together. Or we'd go down to George Vitent's and play some golf. But one of my favorite things to do with Dave was skiing. We would ski down here in southern Wisconsin, or up in Powderhorn in northern Wisconsin and upper Michigan. We took trips in high school to Vail and Jackson Hole and Steamboat. We went to family trips to Winter Park. It was where we just fell in love with skiing and the freedom that it provided. Another cherished memory that I have was visiting David's grandparents' home on Schrader Road. They had this beautiful Frank Lloyd Wright style home on top of this big hill in the woods, 12 acres surrounding it. We would play in the woods, playing army, building forts, just being boys, having fun. But one day while trying to build this fort, we were startled by the loud Indian warrior call. Whoa! It was Grandpa McLeod, this big 6'4" man, dressed up in Cherokee outfit. We screamed so loud, and we're so scared and running around. He was chasing us through the woods. You probably could hear our screams all the way to Channel 15's newsroom. In the obituary, it was said that David caught this exercise bug while rowing at the UW-Madison. But to be honest, he started much earlier than that. In middle school, we joined the band. And I decided to play the alto sax. My sister had an alto sax, and I decided to play that. Well, David lugged around something called a baritone. Have you seen a baritone for a sixth grader? It was huge. That's where he started exercising. Because in those days, we didn't have parents that would drop us off at school and pick us up. No, we had to walk the mile to and from school, uphill both ways, all that stuff, and he was lugging that thing. He liked exercising, though, and he liked looking good. He'd catch himself in the mirror. You know it. You saw him. I saw him. He was proud. And why not? His mom was a beauty queen. Miss Minnesota, runner-up, I think, something like that. And at some point in our childhood, Elaine and Paul decided they were going to move. I was devastated. Until I learned they were moving 2 houses down the street to the Szymanski's white mansion. This was a great place to play. Double lot, huge football field, had goal posts. They had a football or a basketball court on their driveway, pool table downstairs. Dave had a putting green in his bedroom. This place was awesome. Needless to say, Mike and I were there all the time. Dave's siblings, Jenny and Eric, had no choice. We were just part of the family. Unless it was Friday night. Then we were down at Mike's house, sitting around, mingling around near dinner time, hoping that Mike's mom, Helen, would invite us to Amato's for spaghetti dinner on Park Street. One of my fondest memories was celebrating David's birthdays. Being in television, or liked television, 50 years ago this year, there was a blockbuster movie that premiered about a big fish. Anybody know? It was Jaws. Wow, what a movie. 2 years later, again on his birthday, there was another blockbuster movie, Star Wars. We had some great times on Dave's birthday celebrating him, and we had a great time as teenagers. High school was a blast. Dave and Leaf, Greg, and I, we spent time going to the sporting events, cruising down State Street, which you can't do anymore in a car. His mom had this Pontiac Firebird. It was an awesome, souped-up car. But we weren't all fun and games. We studied hard. We hung out together, but not in the cafeteria like the jocks. We weren't in the parking lot smoking and drinking. We studied. We were in the library. Honestly, that's where we hung out, was the library. We all graduated from college. We all built a meaningful life together. Believe this or not, we've all been married at least 35 years. We've all worked for essentially the same company, one company in our careers. Dave, Communications, UW-Madison, went to Disney. Greg, Purdue University, aeronautical engineer. Leaf was at Madison, chemical engineer, and I in finance. Been with New York Life almost 40 years. Through all of it, Dave was the consummate friend for all of us. He was always there. A true friend through good and bad, polite, funny, intelligent, supportive. I couldn't have asked for a better friend. I trusted him. So much he was my best man. I stand here in front of you today in disbelief. How could this have happened? Why Dave? He was the healthiest of us all. He didn't smoke. Well, maybe one time, but he didn't inhale. He didn't drink heavy, except, well, there was that one time, 4th of July, 1977, Southern Comfort. But he did exercise, and we all love that about him. He had it all. He deserved a long and joyful retirement with Katie, his children, the grandkids. Paul, you raised one heck of a young man. Katie, you and Dave built a beautiful life together, a family to be proud of. It'll be incredibly hard to carry on without him. I know you'll honor his love, because yours is a love that doesn't end. We will definitely miss him. Dave McLeod, I love you. I missed you. You're my best friend. Thank you.
It's always an honor to be with a family as they try to say farewell to someone they love and cherish so deeply in their lives. Thank you for letting me take that brief walk with you. At times when we as clergy walk with families, they are families that we have known for a while or for years. That is not the case for me today. Unfortunately, I never had the pleasure of meeting David. But what is clear from my time with you, family members, is that we heard so much about his love, his passion for work, the intentional way he stayed in touch with people, and the way he cared for and loved his family. Unfortunately, we can never be prepared for these kinds of twists and turns in our lives. And you may be wondering, why are we gathered here today? David and Katie lived in Downers Grove, and Greg gave it away. It's because this space holds memories. In 1985, David and Katie joined their lives together, right here, to start the family they have today. So love may not have started here, but it was made official here and kicked off the life we celebrate today. This space may look a little differently than it did in 1985. I think you were reminiscing just before we walked out. I remember this walk. But love didn't change, and love won't change. That spirit lives long in you and your family. From this venue to what you have today.
For those of you who are here today who I haven't met, I'm Eric McLeod, David's younger brother, and you likely noticed the resemblance. And that's one of the fascinating things about genes. Sometimes they create distinct similarities, yet sometimes they produce clear differences. But why am I talking about genes? Well, I always knew that as children, David on the one hand, and our sister Jennifer and I on the other were different. But I don't think I really ever put my finger on it to define that difference until recently. And I think it comes down to genes. David was a Sundstrom, and I think Jennifer and I got more genes from the McLeod side. And given our shared propensity to become angry more easily and to be a bit more cantankerous at times, it's clear that she and I also got a good dose of the Middleton genes. But David, not so much. What do I mean by that? Well, I think it comes down to one distinct characteristic. David was cool. The Sundstrom gene is the cool gene. And with sincere apologies to my father and other family members who are here today, the McLeods are just not that cool. The McLeods have many extremely admirable qualities, but the McLeod gene is not the cool gene. David got the cool gene. He got it from our beautiful and elegant mother, Elaine. He shared the cool gene with our uncle, David Sundstrom. Now, cool is not something you can aspire to. You either have it or you don't. And David had it. And if you knew David, I think you have a sense for what I'm talking about. He had the ordinary challenges in life, to be sure, just like we all do. But he went through most of his life with quiet confidence. He had it together. He dressed well. He presented himself well. He was articulate and thoughtful, and he always made others feel comfortable around him. He was the quintessential true gentleman. From the perspective of a younger brother growing up, what I saw in all of that was cool. I admired that about him, and I was always just a little bit jealous of that quality in him. David was a lover, never a fighter. He avoided conflict, and growing up, he was often forced to be the mediator between me and Jennifer. On family vacations in the backseat of the station wagon, he had to sit in the middle to stop me from my relentless efforts to pester Jennifer and to stop her from yelling, "He's touching me!" No doubt he would have liked to have lost his cool in those situations, but I'm pretty sure he never did. He was stoic even at a very young age. He always kept his cool. For me, David was a role model in so many ways, but I never told him. And I wish I had. And it wasn't just that he was cool. David lived with commitment. A commitment to his family, a commitment to hard work, a commitment to living an honest and good life. Dave's cool never rubbed off on me, but the extraordinarily good man that he was certainly had an impact. What I learned from my older brother is to take care of the people and the things that are most important. Those are the things that make for a meaningful and fulfilling life. Now, despite the fact that he was primarily a Swede by nature and temperament, as you may have noted in the obituary, Zach was the primary author. David was very proud of his Scottish heritage. So I'd like to read a brief poem by legendary Scottish poet Robert Burns, and I'll dispense with the Scottish accent so that you can understand it. An honest man here lies at rest, as ever God with his image blessed, the friend of man, the friend of truth, the friend of age and guide of youth. Few hearts like his with virtue warmed, few heads with knowledge so informed. If there's another world, he lives in bliss. If there is none, he made the best of this. We love you, David, and we will miss you for as long as we live. But I believe in God, and I believe there is another world where you now live in bliss. And we will see each other again. In the meantime, we will hold fast with you always in our hearts.
So I'm Jed Cohen, and I'm a colleague of David's. I'm here with several of our other colleagues, Bill, Tina, Rich, Steve, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to share some memories and thoughts of David and just complete David's family circle that we see here today by just giving you some thoughts from his Disney family. So David spent almost his entire career, 35 years, at Disney in TV syndication sales and research, and I was fortunate enough to work with him for almost 30 years. And others here as well that I pointed to, they've also worked with David, and for some of them for decades as well. And we were a pretty stable, cohesive group through the years, which is really one of the reasons why we consider ourselves a family. It's an industry where there's a lot of turnover usually, and you don't really usually see that kind of stability in a team. But, David was an integral part of our sales team. And as Senior VP of Midwest Region Sales, he played a key role in the success of all of our sales initiatives. And as I listened to everybody kind of talk about David and his qualities, well, first off, I wish I went first instead of like now, because everybody was so articulate and so thoughtful in what they said. So, but I think a lot of the personality traits we saw and appreciated as well in the way he did his job and the way he conducted himself. He had a sharp mind, really strong analytical skills, and a really calm, easygoing nature that allowed him, like in the midst of a fractious sales meeting, and all the debates that would go on there, you would just in a calm voice, come up with like a logical solution to what we were all arguing about. And we're like, yeah, that makes sense. And in a room full of A-type sales personalities who all have strong point of view and love to hear themselves talk, David could lower the temperature with just a simple, calmly delivered insight or suggestion. And with all the pressure that we were sometimes under, I never saw him lose his cool. I traveled with David a lot. I would come to Chicago. We had some big buyers in Chicago. And we would make presentations. And, you know, it was always like 3 meetings, get in the car, get to the airport, go someplace else, you know. And so David would, you know, we'd have a 3 o'clock meeting. I'd have a 5:30 flight. You know, we'd get on the, you know, get on the highway, the Kennedy, whatever it is, and boom, just hit like bumper-to-bumper traffic. And I'm like, David, my flight leaves in like an hour and 20 minutes. So I got to make it. And he'd be like, you know, leaning back the way he would in his car, kind of driving with like 3 fingers on the wheel. I said, yeah, we're fine. And I would take his word for it, and he was always right. Like I said, I never saw him lose his cool, which is probably a good thing, you know, because David was a pretty imposing figure. He was like the Hercules of the sales. You know, big, strong, worked out. Whenever we were in a sales meeting, he always sort of managed to walk through the lobby in a tank top from the gym. You know, hey, how you doing? You know, and so, you know, he was, when he worked in the Atlanta office in the early 90s, his nickname was Terminator. And because, you know, you put a pair of sunglasses and a leather jacket on him, and he could kind of look like Schwarzenegger, you know? So, but he was actually, you know, he was also actually, you know, like I said, kind of like a little bit of an exhibitionist. I'll tell you one story about a show that we were selling, Home Improvement. This was in the early 90s. Let's say it was David's peak buffness, okay? And so, you know, the show, it's Tim Allen, and he's on the show Tool Time, and so one of the things that we did as part of the sales, you know, the sales presentations is instead of wearing suits and ties, we all dressed as construction workers. You know, we had this outfit. It was like jeans and a work shirt and a tool belt and a bag full of tools, and it was a lot of fun. And of course, David wore the outfit like the rest of us, except for one modification. He cut the sleeves off. And people talked about that. People talked about that for a long time. And so, you know, and at some point I looked at him and I said, hey, David, are you pitching Home Improvement or auditioning for the Village People, you know? So, anyway. But David was really, really well-liked and had earned the trust and respect of his colleagues and clients alike. He was appreciated for his knowledge and his integrity and his soft but gentle but really effective, you know, sales style. I mean, if you think about David, you wouldn't necessarily, you know, sort of like picture him as a sales guy. And he's not this aggressive, loud, always trying to close, say anything to get a deal kind of person. But what he did have was he was very knowledgeable. He could construct a strong argument, a very compelling argument for why you should listen to him. And you know, people trusted him. And that was really, I think, the key to his sales success. And as news spread of David's passing, the comments from those he had worked with and called on and interacted with were all very similar. many referred to him as a good man. You know, and so you step back and you say, well, what does it mean to be a good man? What does it mean to lead a good life? That's actually a conversation that I would have liked to have had with David, because he's the kind of person that you would get some fun insights, and I'm sure he, you know, would have a little bit to say about that. My commute in the morning in LA to Burbank, I don't know, the traffic was always horrendous, and one of the things I would do was catch up with my salespeople. And what's going on, you know, how are they doing? And I would regularly touch base with David. And after we got through business, you know, the conversation could go and got more personal. The conversation could just go in a million different directions. I mean, you know, he had this knack. He had a lot of knowledge about a lot of different things. And I mean, whether it was about ancient aliens or, reincarnation or, other kinds of spiritual things, weird, viruses that he read about, all different kinds of things that, he would sort of weave into the conversation. And so I enjoyed those conversations very much. But in getting back to just trying to figure out, what is a good life? What is a good man? I think that the ancient Greeks had it right, and they associated a good life with a flourishing life. And central to their sort of framework was virtue ethics, which was a kind of a guide for how a person should interact with the world. And the four basic virtue ethics were courage, justice, temperance, and wisdom. And I think that David, whether consciously or unconsciously, incorporated all these things in the way he navigated his way through the world. Courage, because he had the courage to be himself, and the courage to pursue his dreams. Justice, because of the integrity that he exhibited in how he treated his clients and others in business. And in a business where there was a lack of integrity often, and you were often selling against other people who didn't have that same level of integrity that you had. Temperance, well, calm, easygoing nature. I mean, he wasn't emotional or prone to anger. He was totally even keel. I don't know that I've ever seen David upset, angry, depressed, or any of those things in the way we interacted. I mean, we had our challenges, and things were difficult at times, but he was a pretty balanced individual. And of course, wisdom. He relied on a certain knack for just simple reason and logic for how to solve a problem. And he was interested. He had a wide range of interests, and he pursued knowledge. He was like the factoid king, knew all these little things that, he would kind of also mention into a conversation. So I think, summing up what everybody before me said and what I've tried to capture here, is that David was a good man and led a good life. Thank you.
Aldana was sitting behind me. The pastor here struck a chord with me. She said, you'll speak a little bit about David. There'll be others. And you did a fabulous job talking about this man. And when you can put smiles on our faces out there based on what's happened is special. Eric, for you sharing about your brother, saying, you wish you would have said something. We've all been there. Yet let's go forward today in remembering him in what we should do and tell others. And we're going to have maybe you'd call it a little exercise at the end. I want to ask you to do something today in honor of David at the end. But I'm going to start out with in 1 Samuel, how do we remember? And really, Aldana said to me, and this was the spark, was where do we go from here? I mean, we are sitting in a church today, and that's the church is you. It's not the name of this church. It's not a Methodist church. It's not a Presbyterian church. It's not that you're Catholic and you're going to heaven because you're Catholic. It's because you believe in Jesus Christ. And where do we go from here? Holy smokes. What do we take from this opportunity here? That's what this is today. This is an opportunity. This didn't happen by chance that we are all sitting here. We all came in today. God has seen it before we were all born. No doubt about it. God isn't a God of luck or happenstance or just by golly, look what happened. And, a baseball player, an athlete, or the Disney crew that worked their tail off didn't wait on luck. A baseball player doesn't get up there and good luck. He's worked years to get that hit. So it's not by chance that we're all here today. It's by design. Truly. God said in 1 Samuel 2:30, he said this, I honor those who honor me. I honor those who honor me. Honor is huge today. I'm in the weight room at Downers Grove North High School, and there's a young guy. He happens to be from Wisconsin, doing his student teaching, Whitewater. And he is a structure. If you said Dave was a structure, this is a structure times 20. I mean, he was short, built, and everybody in the weight room was just like, wow. And I was like, who can look like that? And he was so personal, so kind, so approachable. The kids just loved him. And he was helping them. It was as part of his thing that he did, and his passion was weightlifting. And he wanted to be a professional trainer for some sports team was his goal. And he was there day after day, week after week. And then all of a sudden, he disappeared. And it was about a week later, and I said, hey, where were you, David? His name was David Plurday. I'll never forget him. And he said, well, he was at a funeral out east. And I said, oh, I'm sorry. He goes, no, don't be sorry. He said it was a wonderful time. Wonderful. Wonderful. You think about that word. I get crazy sometimes. Wonder. It's a wonder. It's full of wonder. Wonderful. Wonderful? Yeah, I said, well, tell me why. And he said, well, it brought family together. We're together. The Disney crew is family. We're all family here. We're together. There's a president with President Trump, Obama, whatever. They have their cabinet, their advisors, and then they have their inner circle. And that inner circle is the mover. And this is what we have here today. This is the inner circle for David, for the family. And David said, and also, here's this young guy, much younger than me, telling me that it gave him a chance and everybody there at the wake to reflect on life and how valuable it is. Isn't that wonderful? Wonderful. And with the artistic family that we have here today, starting with David being the nucleus, the pinnacle here, all these great stories, I was thinking of this story, and it goes back to World War I. And there's this gentleman, Ansley, an artist, and he has just got the gallery that is the envy of Europe before World War I. His house is loaded with artwork that everybody just wants it and can't get it, but they come to his house to see it. And he's wealthy, it's a big place, people come and go. His wife had died early on in his life, and it was him and his son. And his son had the same passion, and working side by side with his father in this business was the best it could ever be. And then World War I comes along, and his son goes off to fight and gets killed. And this father just went into a depression, closed up the gallery, never to be heard from again. After the war was over, just happened to be a soldier that was with his son when he died, was with him through the whole campaign, and knew all about his son's passion and love for his father and for the arts. And the guy wasn't an artist or a painter or had really any ability. But what could he give this father? It touched him so to be with a man that died in action. It moved him. So he drew a sketch of the man's son. And he knocks on the door of this house. He's going to give it to him as a gift. Knocks on the door. The dad answers, the father, and just says, "Thank you." Shuts the door, goes into his house. Soldiers just walks away. Years later, the elderly gentleman with the gallery passes away. There's an auction. Europe's a-bubbling. Holy smokes. We're going to be able to get our hands on that artwork. On the best and the top and the elites show up. They're all there at the auction. The auctioneer's up there, hits the gavel. First thing on the docket, you got all this beautiful artwork ready to go. Millions of dollars. Up comes this sketch of his son. First thing. Nobody wants it. Nobody wants it. Nobody cares. Nobody's bidding. If you've ever been to an auction, I'm a wannabe farmer. I go to auctions. Things start out. You can have a little piece of nothing, and the auctioneer is going to go $50, $50. And the farmers, they're smart. They know. They don't. Nobody. I'm learning when I'm first one. And you don't say anything, and all of a sudden the 50 goes to 40, down to 30, down to 20. Pretty soon, I got a nickel. I got a dime. Someone give me $1. They drop it down. This thing drops down. Nobody wants it. But it happens to be at the back of the auction is that soldier who heard about this. He bought the sketch back. Boom! The auctioneer hits the lectern or the table. Auction's over. People are like, what? What? And he said, the owner of all this artwork said, whoever buys my son, whoever takes my son, takes it all. Whoever takes Jesus takes it all. Where do we go from here? You want to have that peace that passes all understanding? In Philippians 4:7, that's what you get when you take Jesus. Doesn't make sense to this today. His high school friend, 62, why? God knows the day you're going to be born and the day you die. And what's important for all of us has been demonstrated here with people talking about the value of life. The marker on the tombstone, the characteristic on the tombstone that matters is not the date, it's the dash. What did we do with the dash? That's what matters. And we all we're going to have that dash. What are we doing? And life is tough. There's a lot of evil. There's a lot of struggle, but there's a lot of joy. And that true joy and peace comes through Jesus Christ. I can't be up here. Doggone it, we're in a church. Where do we go from here? Where do you go from here? Most of you have been in the delivery room. I mean, I'm old. But I was in the delivery room. There's something there. There's a package there that goes beyond the skin and bones of that baby. There's something deeper. And you can be comforted by your dog, your cat, and I've had dogs and animals. You can be comforted by grandma. You can be comforted by your son. But there's only one thing that's going to take you across the finish line, comfort that no one can have unless you accept Jesus Christ. That's the comfort that takes you into eternity. I used to think in my young age, boy, Lord, help me make up the difference. Man, I messed up. I'm in it. Make up the difference till one day I found out He is the difference. He is the difference. In 1 Timothy 2:5 it says this. First it says there's one God. There's not multiple gods. There's not multiple religions. There exist, but there's one God. And one mediator between man and God. And that's Jesus Christ. And I'd like to tell you this, and I wish I could tell you otherwise. I wish I could. Good people don't go to heaven. As the Bible says, our works are as filthy rags. Good people don't go to heaven. Saved people go to heaven. That Lord Jesus Christ wants you. He is waiting for you. And you can sit there and say, I don't believe it. Church has been rotten. Church has been manipulative. Church has twisted the truth, and you are right. But the gospel, the book, the Bible is true. Jesus is true. Is justice, is right. You talk about integrity, purity, righteousness, loving all of us. And if you want to see your loved ones again, you'll see them forever. God says, you believe in me, you'll never die. And I say this out of love. I'm not trying to lecture you. Because where do we go from here? We all have a choice. In war, since I talked about World War I, World War II, I'm a history guy. You throw your hands up in battle, it means you surrender. That's not good. But you're saying, I'm not a threat. I'm yours. What do you want me to do? And thinking about Jesus Christ, it's a gift to surrender. And we got pride in the way, interferes all the time. It's not a coincidence that in Psalm 134 in the Bible, scholars are telling you it's a command. Lift your hands in the sanctuary and praise me. But unless we feel like it, or someone's looking at me, we're to let go. Like David jumping off that dock, we're to let go and believe in something greater than ourselves. Yeah, there's a lot of intellectuals out there that don't believe, but I'm telling you, there's a lot that do, but you don't read about them. Isaac Newton wrote commentaries. Isaac Newton said this, one of the greatest scientists, greatest minds that ever walked this earth, read about his accomplishments, said, I could see afar because I stood on the shoulders of giants. He had the humility to say, because of what others did, look what I have. What Ansley said about her father, thank you for what you've provided. Ansley didn't go, look at me today. So I'm speaking to some of you, your pride, some of you are pretty sharp. I'm not the sharpest crayon in the box. But boy, some of you are pretty sharp. I know it. Napoleon was an intellectual. Scholars will tell you that. And he's conquering, he's on the shores of Egypt, on the sands of Egypt. And he says to his generals, they're all educated men. These weren't a Rambo type that just were good at what they did at warfare. He had the educated, the best, the elites around him in the campfire. And they knew Napoleon. They didn't speak their mind. They spoke what the general probably wanted to hear. And Napoleon asked them, it's documented around the campfire, do you believe in God? And each of those around the campfire, no, General. No, General. No, General. And Napoleon stands up and points at the stars, and said, then who made these? It's your choice. Today, where do we go from here? The archaeological digs, the historical evidence, there's more evidence that Jesus walked this earth and did what he did than Caesar was Caesar of Rome. Did you know that? You have a choice. And in this great memory, just based on what some people have said and what Dan said, when we're talking with the family about Dad, you know, my dad came from a family of 13. He was the youngest. Parents died before he was 5, my father. And my dad didn't say love him much, but I know he loved all of us. It's a big family. My mom said it all the time. Dan and them knew that Dad loved him. Loved him. But he didn't say it a lot. And his dad didn't say it a lot. We can change that. We can change that. There's a quote that says, "Step into the unknown and make it known." You got to let loose. You got to jump off the dock. You got to let it go. I'm going to ask you to do this in remembrance of a great man, a mighty man. The friends came up. The colleague came up. This is unbelievable. But in a blink, we'll be there ourselves. No longer will we hold back. Each of us. You know, I see some staring out. I ask you respectfully, look at me. Look at me. I had 90 guys on my cross-country team I coached, head cross-country coach. I jam them into a classroom and held 30 and said, then look at me when I talk. And then when you're up here, we'll look at you because that's what you do. So out of respect and love, I'm going to ask you to do something I had them do. We need to do this. You'll sit there and say, I love my shoes. I love this store. I love that movie. I love this book. I love my garden. I love birds. I love the fish. But you'll work alongside people your whole life. You'll have a neighbor there you've seen your whole life that you might say hello to. I can tell Zach and Dan and Ansel and Tom and Katie, I love them. They don't have to be blood in order for me to say to somebody, I love you. In honor of David, I'm going to ask you to do something. And maybe you don't mean it, but maybe eventually you will. And maybe it might become something you'd be more inclined to do. And the last thing I'm going to say, because it's not about me. It's not. I tell my cross-country boys I love them. Not so they tell it back to me. I need to hear it. Because they need to know that that's what a man and a woman needs to do in this world, to break down the barriers and the issues that are there. So I'm going to ask all of you if you'd please stand. Everybody please stand here. For Zach, for Dan, for Ansley, for Katie, for all the families that are here, the friends. It's exactly what I do with the kids in high school. And I've talked here and did the same thing up in the inner sanctum at Camp Randall to the elite athletes here at this university. At the count of 3, I want you to turn to someone to your right or left. You may not know them, and say, I love you. 1, 2, 3. With that, I'm going to let LaDonna finish it up here. I love you all. Please go forth in that love. What's the takeaway here today? We talked about courage, about stepping out. Step out with the Lord. He's got your back. He loves you. He gave his life for you. There's no other religion that has that gift. You have a choice. God made you. He makes no mistakes. But we are all defined by the decisions we make every day. You have free will. You were born with sin. You have a choice. Put that pride aside. Humble yourself. In Isaiah 66:2, I'll end with this. God says, I esteem the one who is humble and contrite and trembles at my word. I lift up. I esteem. You want God's favor? Humility. You need something greater than yourselves. Amen for that.
You may be seated. Before this on? Is this still? Yeah, thank you. What did these three call Dave? Grandpa? Okay. Grandpa would be so proud of you three today. They got the cool gene. They got the cool gene. You guys have been rock stars, so thank you for being so awesome. Join me in prayer, please. God of love and comfort, we give thanks for this time to be together, to remember the times we shared laughter and tears with David. Each of us has been touched with his spirit and will carry him with us in the memories we hold. We ask God to surround this family with love as they move forward with a void in their lives. May the memories made together with Dave as spouse, dad, grandfather, brother, brother-in-law, and son be held tightly in their hearts. May friends remember Dave with joy and provide support to his family as life and time continues. May each of us find the spirit of Dave lingering in our daily lives as we remember him today and always. We give thanks for this beloved child of God. Amen. At this time, we offer our sibling, David Paul McLeod, into God's loving arms. Receive him into the arms of your mercy, into the blessed rest of everlasting peace, and into the glorious company of all the saints. Amen. May you go from this place carrying David's spirit in your heart, maybe a little dance in your step, and great love to share with others. Go in peace. Amen.